Mohammad Yassin runs a clothes shop. The last 2 years have seen his sales plummet, a side effect of Pakistan's worsening economic situation. But he cast his ballot in the recent general elections with a sense of optimism.
I voted in these elections with good intentions that God saves this country and the new government does good things. We have suffered a lot during the last years because of protests and strikes. Our businesses have been destroyed.
And Yassin isn't the only one who voted with the economy front and center.
I have cast my ballot with optimism that the new government will bring a prudent economic policy. It will tackle the problem of unemployment. Our youth have degrees, but they have no jobs.
First of all, we need to improve our economy. We need to focus on education and health. Also, we need to ease our debt burden.
Inflation in Pakistan is currently at 28% and economic growth is low. The budget and current account deficits are pushing the country to borrow more. Almost 80% of the country's revenues go to interest payments. In July, Pakistan struck a $3 billion deal with the International Monetary Fund to avoid a potential default.
It is very likely that when the new government comes, Pakistan will have to go for a 3-year IMF program called Extended Fund Facility because there is a huge gap between Pakistan's external payments and what we get through our remittances and exports.
This means the incoming government has its work cut out. People were hoping the February 8 elections would deliver results that might lead to some semblance of stability.
With the hung parliament, it is almost certain that Pakistan will have a coalition government. This means building consensus on key issues will be challenging, something that could only deepen the country's economic troubles.
And Yassin may have to wait a little longer before business starts to boom. Kamran Yusuf, TRT World, Islamabad.
And now let's bring in Osama Rizvi, an economist analyst at Primary Vision Energy. He joins us now live from Lahore, Pakistan. Thank you for joining us. Right, so the new Prime Minister will have a very difficult task after not only 2 years of severe political instability in the country, but also a very serious economic crisis. We have seen the currency, the Pakistani rupee, plunge, to say the least, in recent years. How difficult a task, in your opinion, I wonder?
I believe it is going to be a really uphill task for any government that would come and take the helm of the affairs. What we have in Pakistan is what can be termed as a polycrisis. So we have a climate crisis. There were floods recently, not more than 2 years ago, which caused a huge food crisis. There is inflation. Then there is an economic crisis. There is an energy crisis. The results of the elections have delayed to deplorable levels, and that is part of the political crisis. So we have all of these crises which can unfortunately become a mega crisis. And for any government, the next government, it will be a really, really difficult task to deal with all of these simultaneously.
Right, and I think you have summarized it quite well. I mean, several crises overlapping, right? We know there's some 40% of the population living below the poverty line. We know inflation has skyrocketed to more than 30%. We also know that according to a poll that was released this week, about 70% of Pakistanis believe economic conditions are in fact worsening. If you could summarize that, what do you think the priorities for the new Prime Minister will be?
There are 3 points. The first one is resolving the cost of living crisis. As you just mentioned, 40% of the population lives below poverty line. There has been a huge spike in electricity bills. The food prices are in stable levels. Every day, the common person finds it more difficult to live. That would be the first priority. The second one will be to get on another IMF program, because without that, the difference between the external liabilities and the expenditure and the revenue is too much to bear for any government. And the third one would be, and the most difficult one would be, to prioritize economic considerations rather than political gains, and which would involve taking unpopular measures, and which would put the government in quite a difficult spot.
One last point. So Pakistan, as you said, has received yet another bailout. from the International Monetary Fund. That's the 23rd since 1958. What do you make of this? I mean, will this be of help this time round?
I do not think so. All of these only cater to the symptomatic management of the economy. I've always said that to resolve Pakistan's economic crisis, we really need to work on what are called the structural adjustments or structural reforms. We need to increase our productivity. We need to increase our lessen our reliance on foreign on imported energy like oil and gas. We need to improve our efficiency. We need to have long-term policy making in place. Apart from these, IMF and other programs, they won't help for the longer run until or unless steps are taken for structural reforms.
Osama Rizvi, thank you very much for helping us dissect all that.